In this video, I'm going to talk about which bodybuilding supplements are effective and which ones are a waste of time. This is it. I've created the absolute litmus test for bodybuilding supplements. And the litmus test that I'm going to use is economic Darwinism. Okay, only the strong survive. Same thing happens in the financial world. If something works, it sells. If something sells, it survives. And if something doesn't sell, it's forgotten about. Okay, it's just cold hard fact. Yes, you might be able to sell snake oil on a small scale. You might be able to sell snake oil for a short amount of time, but the fact of the matter is, if something is sold wide scale for a long time consistently, then it's gotta work. Okay, you can't fool people that long. So I'm a little bit older than most people. I'm 40, almost 41 as of making this video, and I've been around working out, different types of fitness, whether it's performance-based, appearance-based, bodybuilding, calisthenics, weightlifting, whatever, for like years and years and years. So I remember back in the 90s, like a bunch of new supplements came out. There have been supplements like forever, okay? And then, but not really on the scale that they were in like the 90s, okay? Protein, whatever, came out maybe in the 50s, but on a very small scale. You had to drive to a special store to get it and stuff. And even in the early 90s when I started working out, it was like, hey, some kind of soy protein powder you can get from a health food store or whatever. That wasn't really very effective. But the market really evolved in the late 80s, early 90s. And I remember there was a company called EAS, Experimental and Applied Sciences. They really blew up, came out with all kinds of supplements, and very importantly, they came up with an annual. It was like the Bible, the encyclopedia of bodybuilding supplements. And I remember one time when I got this paperback huge book, because I was in a store buying a bunch of supplements, and the guy's like, dude, thanks for buying out my store here, just take this book for free. And I remember reading it, and they broke down like every supplement and the reason that it was being used. And some of those supplements are around today, okay, like 20 years later, and a lot of them aren't. And basically, like I said, what's still around from back then works, okay? Back then, whey protein was coming out big time, okay, because they were talking about how easily digestible it is, how quickly digestible it is. You did a workout, you want to get some protein to your body right away, best thing, okay? And whey protein is still around, okay? It's still like the king, quote, of protein. Back then they were talking about casein protein as being like the nighttime, the bedtime protein. And, that's still around. It's not as big as whey because everybody's like, oh yeah, I just worked out, I need to use some protein. Well, after you work out, use whey, but casein protein is also still around. Creatine started coming around back then. I'm probably gonna have to do a whole video about creatine, but creatine is just as big now as it was back then. It's more performance-based, at least the way I use it. Like if you work out using creatine, doing anaerobic short burst activities, whether it's weightlifting or sprinting, or in my case burpees or whatever, plyometrics, you definitely feel the difference. And because you can work out harder, more intensely, you get an effect from it. Back then they were talking about how you got like overnight 10-15 pound muscle gain, which was basically just the creatine going into your muscles and then building up water. And like I said, I'll talk about creatine in another video, but the bottom line is creatine is still around. Okay, glutamine, a lot of people use glutamine, I'm one of them. What's not around? I remember back in the 90s, there was a thing, he talked about how it's probably going to be it's new, it hasn't really been, tested that much in the field, but I think it's going to be the next big thing, and it's HMB. Most people listening to this don't know what the hell HMB is, okay? I haven't seen HMB in a very long time. I was walking around in like an outlet mall, and I saw a GNC, and I'm like, hey, let's, peruse. I never really buy anything from GNC. Because they're too expensive and they don't have a lot of stuff. Even if I buy a GNC product, I probably won't buy it from GNC. I'll buy it somewhere else. But Yeah, you know, I saw HMB there, like one tiny little bottle hidden away somewhere, and I haven't seen it, like I said, for years because it's bullshit. I mean, it doesn't really work. The idea was if you take HMB, it will keep your muscles from breaking down so you could like work out harder and prevent overtraining. If it worked, okay, if it had a noticeable, measurable effect that you can notice, it would still be around, but it's not, okay? So that's the reason why HMB, years later, nobody knows what the hell it is. Chromium picolinate, I think is what it was called. Like, yes, that helps you lean down. And even back then, he wrote something like, it's not going to lean you down and build you up overnight, but over a long term, it will help. Yeah, maybe you get a small, immeasurable difference in your training if you take that also. But because even back then, they're like, take this also. You know, it wasn't like this is going to change your life, but take this also, maybe it might help. Chromium picolinate, screw that. You know, seriously, I've lost 30 pounds of fat in 4 months, getting ripped at the same time, and I didn't take any chromium picolinate, okay? I did take glutamine, creatine, whey protein, and casein, though. What else was it? You know, a lot of things, like somebody, like I said, snake oil. A lot of people will sell something short-term because they come up with a test or an experiment or a study that really has nothing to do with it. You know, for instance, like glutamine was like given to burn patients or something like that. And because of that, they're like, well, it might help with bodybuilding. And actually it does. Okay. But that just so happens to be, you know, like an exception. Like with things like, what the hell was it? Was it like boron or something? There was one mineral that people were taking because if a pregnant woman took it, it would like work, you know, to do something positive with them that might be able to help a bodybuilder. But the idea is, you know, when people actually took it, it wasn't really doing anything for them. It wasn't effective. It wasn't like, you know, if I take creatine, I recently started taking creatine, and I could tell with my workouts, like the anaerobic workouts, if I'm doing plyometrics and jumping or whatever, that I was just more explosive. I immediately noticed it, you know, within a couple of days. So yeah, creatine works, you know. You know, the same thing, like I said, if you don't have a lot of protein in your diet and you take, you know, protein powders, yeah, it's going to help you, you know, it's protein. So, but like I said, things like chromium picolinate, HMB, you know, whatever this mineral was, boron, whatever the hell it was, those are kind of things you don't really notice, you know, if at all. It makes maybe a small difference, but it's not really worth screwing with. So, like I said, that's basically the way to judge whether or not a supplement is effective. You know, how long has it been around? I'm not saying you shouldn't use new things, but in general, if you want to know something works, how long has it been around? And you know, is it still around? Is it still being used? Because, like I said, I mean, if people are getting results from it, then it's going to be continue to be sold. If it's not going to, people aren't getting results, they're not going to buy it. If they're not going to buy it, they're not going to make it anymore. They're barely going to make it, like that one bottle of HMB I just happened to see for the first time in 10 years. So, like I said, that's basically what it is stick with the basics. Try something new if you want, but in general, stick with the basics. Like, this has been around for years and years and years, and it's still one of the top supplements, then yeah, it probably does have the effect that they say it does.